presented by Auraverse, where consciousness, earth and inner wisdom move as one. Showcase your work at auraverse.network and let your voice travel across worlds.
Before we begin, let your breath become calm and unhurried, and imagine that the mind itself is turning gently from the surface of things toward a deeper brightness behind them. Welcome. I am C.S. Douglas, and this is Codex Æternum, the Rational Bible, a journey through the hidden architecture of power and the living conscience of the universe.
This program is endorsed by Authorpedia, the world's only encyclopedia exclusively dedicated to authors, a living archive where writers and thinkers are immortalized through literature. Visit authorpedia.org and become part of our enduring legacy.
In Book 6, The Sages, we now enter Episode 91, Plato and the Ascent from Shadows to the Real. In the hills and harbours of ancient Greece, where arguments echoed in marketplaces and stars were studied from temple steps, there arose a thinker who became fascinated by one question. How do we know what is truly real? His name was Plato. He listened to his teacher Socrates press people with questions until their opinions fell apart, and in the ruins of those opinions he sensed the outline of something more enduring. Truths that do not change when circumstances do. To express this, Plato spoke of a realm of forms. The forms are not ghostly copies of things, but the other way round. They are the originals. For every quality we recognize, beauty, justice, courage, circleness, treeness, there is, in this higher realm, a perfectly itself version, unmixed, unchanging. The circles we draw wobble and blur, the acts we call just are often compromised, yet the mind still measures them against something more precise. Plato says that something is the form. The world our senses report, with its chipped stones and fleeting pleasures, is a world of appearances. It is in constant flux. Things arise, alter, dissolve. Our sensory experience is useful but unreliable as a final arbiter. We mistake shadows for objects, echoes for voices, and we cling to impressions as if they were the whole of reality. The forms, by contrast, do not rust, rot, or contradict themselves. They are intelligible rather than visible, grasped by the mind's insight rather than by the eyes. For Plato, to gain true knowledge is to turn the soul away from the shifting and the partial towards these stable patterns. You might notice this in your own life. When you call something beautiful, you are not only describing its colors and shapes, you are sensing how it participates more or less in beauty itself. When you are outraged by injustice, it is because you already carry some sense of justice that the current situation offends. The realm of forms is Plato's way of honoring that inner standard. He gave his most famous picture of this in the Allegory of the cave. Imagine, he says, people chained in a cavern since childhood. Their faces are fixed toward a wall, and behind them a fire burns. Between the fire and the prisoners others walk back and forth, carrying objects. All the prisoners see are the shadows of these objects flickering on the wall. They give names to the shadows, debate their patterns, argue about which shadow is first and best. For them, this is the whole of reality. Now, suppose one prisoner is freed. At first, turning toward the fire hurts. The new light stings his eyes. The familiar shadows blur. The solid objects casting them look strange and unreal. If he is led further upward, out of the cave and into the open air, the brightness of the sun is almost unbearable. Yet slowly his sight adjusts. He sees reflections in water, then objects themselves, and finally the sun, source of all the light that made seeing possible at all. This, Plato says, is what happens when a soul turns from mere opinion toward understanding. The cave is the everyday world taken at face value, plus the unexamined habits of thought handed down by culture. The the shadows are appearances, and the chatter about them is what passes for knowing, when we never question our premises. The upward path is the difficult work of philosophy and self-examination. The sun is the form of the good, the highest reality, by which all other forms are illuminated and measured. Notice that in this story, knowledge is not just information added on, it is a reorientation. The freed prisoner is the same person, with the same nervous system and memories, but his whole angle on reality has changed. At first, the new world feels less real than the old shadows. This is how genuine learning often feels, disorienting, even painful. We may long to go back to what was familiar, to the wall we understood. Plato is gently insisting that we stay with the discomfort until our vision clears. In his view, the supreme task of the philosopher is to behold the form of the good. This good is not simply one more thing, but the very principle that makes truth, beauty, and justice what they are. It is to reality what the sun is to sight. It both makes things be and makes them knowable. To know the good is to see why any kind of excellence deserves our allegiance. Crucially, this ascent is not merely intellectual. To see the good clearly is to be transformed by it. When you genuinely understand what justice is, it becomes harder to act unjustly without feeling a fracture inside. When you grasp beauty more deeply, cheap imitations lose some of their pull. For Plato, virtue and knowledge are intimately linked. Real understanding inclines the soul to live differently. Because of this, Plato places enormous weight on education. Education for him is not stuffing minds with facts. It is turning the whole soul from the shadows toward the light, training desire to love what is truly good, training reason to recognize it, and training courage to act in accordance with it. Music, mathematics, gymnastics, dialogue, all serve this turning when approached in the right spirit. In the Republic, he imagines a society guided by this vision. At its helm are philosopher kings, men and women who have made the ascent, seen the form of the good, and returned to the cave not out of superiority, but out of responsibility. Because they understand the structure of justice itself, they are best placed to shape laws and institutions that reflect it. Authority in this ideal is justified not by birth or wealth, but by wisdom and character. Plato knows, of course, that such a city is a high standard, perhaps never perfectly realized. But the point is less to draft a literal blueprint than to ask each of us, who or what governs your inner city? Are your desires ruled by passing shadows, status, fashion, unexamined opinions, or by a growing love for what is genuinely good? In that sense, each soul is already a small republic, and the journey from ignorance to enlightenment is political and spiritual at once. The allegory of the cave also explains why those who glimpse a higher truth often meet resistance. When the freed prisoner returns to tell the others that the shadows are not all there is, they mock him. If he insists, they may even react with hostility. We see this pattern whenever deeply held assumptions are questioned. Plato's counsel is not to despise the prisoners, but to remember that we too are prisoners in many ways, and that liberation requires patience, both with ourselves and with those still facing the wall. What then does Plato offer to a listener today? Not a rigid doctrine, but a challenge. Treat your most cherished perceptions as possible shadows. Ask of your beliefs, by what light am I seeing this? When you feel pulled strongly toward some object, idea, or role, inquire whether it participates in something truly good, or merely seems attractive because of the flickering firelight of habit. Carry this revelation as a quiet practice. Whenever you sense confusion or conflict, imagine yourself pausing mid-ascent on the path out of the cave. Turn for a moment, not toward the latest shadow on the wall, but toward the possibility of a higher pattern behind it. A truer justice, a deeper beauty, a more generous good. You may not see the sun fully yet, but the act of turning already aligns your soul with its light. In our next episode, we leave the stone classrooms of Athens and return to the forests and fire altars of ancient India. There we sit with the Vedic sages, whose hymns and insights crystallized in the Upanishads. They will speak of Atman and Brahman, the innermost self and the boundless reality, and of a unity so profound that the journey from seeker to truth turns out to be a journey from the surface of one's own being to its immeasurable depth. Our next sponsor is Everly Books Publishing Group, a traditional independent press serving both new and established writers. Everly Books welcomes unsolicited manuscripts submitted directly through everlybooks.org.